因为这么高的温度，所以这个任何的玻璃呢都呈现橘红色的光泽，在钢桌上我们滚上彩色的玻璃颗粒。
And we get this crushed colored glass from several different manufacturers around the world. The most prominent are the Germans. They've been melting color for over 200 years.
你可以看到左边我们这回火炉里面没有装玻璃，完全是专门用来加热的。
So we're going to melt that color into the surface. Now, before we begin the glass blowing process, it's important that Dane get everything on the end of the iron nice and symmetrical and round.
所以它慢慢的吹，一面用着钢钳在靠近钢管地方夹出切割线，在这里它会夹很多次，口径越小呢，等一下的切割也会越平整。
So again, using a series of steps, here we're using a wooden paddle to slightly taper the sides, making it more of a cylinder shape. We'll cool and stabilize that neckline and head back to the reading chamber.
所以压缩空气呢，将这个除了它不停的旋转吹管来对抗重力，保持玻璃在正中间之外，它也可以利用重力呢，像是垂下来，玻璃可以拉长，举高这个吹管呢，玻璃会变扁。
So Dane hung it a little bit, reached out, grabbed a set of wooden jacks, created what we call a shoulder in the bubble or a waistline. Now he's drawing that waistline toward you, the audience, creating a long stemmed vase.
用这个夹子呢，将这个玻璃这个腰身夹出来。
No time at all. Change the volume. We're just going to change the shape of the vessel.
再次利用重力将吹管举高呢，玻璃自然变扁，但是底下呢，这个吹口的地方必须要摁住，以免丧失这个痕迹。
So Dane will do some finalizing on that shape. I'm going to create the temporary handle using a solid iron called a punty.
要准备翻转180度来做它的转接，就要利用靠手上这根死性钢管取出一块透明玻璃，要混成尖尖的轻轻的，暂时粘住对做中心。
Now, if we deliver this directly out of the furnace, a couple things will happen. We'll fuse it to the bottom of the.
没有粘好呢，在切割的时候，整个玻璃会掉地上，是非常关键的一步。
So Dane will attach this to the bottom of the piece, trail it to make sure that the two irons line up well together, make sure that the foot remains nice and flat, then we'll utilize that jack line to break the piece free.
确认粘住之后呢，之前他讲的，让它呢最后的展开，可以不用任何工具，利用离心力以及温度和重力来操作这个玻璃。
So grabbing up with the tip, pulling out in a way, giving us that beautiful stretched top. You'll catch that to make sure it sits nice and flat, and then fold the face of the vessel back toward the stem.
非常漂亮一边夹高呢，一边做出这个花的形状。
Now, the final step in the process is we have to cool this down slowly overnight in the process called annealing. And that just simply ensures that it's going to cool uniformly from the inside out.
如果刚刚暂时的连接点恰到好处，这时候点一些水轻轻一敲就可以取下。
A little bit of water will drop the contact temperature, and a slight vibration will actually get the vessel to break free.
非常成功
The Dane can fire polish away the sharp edge that exists, and we'll stick this away in the oven where we will find it sometime tomorrow morning.
Museum going back to 1951, and for a number of years it's been what we call one of our two contemporary galleries. It is largely been, in my time, the large pieces of more like architectural glass. This is one of our oldest of the studio glass pieces. And when I say studio glass, that meant that people glass, and if depending on what you if you've got a schedule, you may want to spend a few minutes watching a flame working demonstration in our innovations gallery. And flame working, unlike the black here with the cameo, this is all Roman era glass. And this is also, not every piece here, but this is where you start to see the glass blowing. Glass blowing dates to about mid-1st century BC, so 2,000-ish years ago. And I draw your attention to this because we had talked about the way the Chihuly vases were made. This is an early example. This is 13th century, 14th century than its size would suggest. But most important for us, it has been a center for very fine glassmaking for hundreds of years, even prior to that. And that top shelf, I'm not going to spend any time here, but that top shelf, those pieces of glass look clear to you. The largest piece there, they look frosted, they look pitted. They are what in the industry they call crizzled. And crizzling basically means deteriorating, and what reminds you of the Roman cup. And essentially it's 1800 plus years later, same kind of process. They got a little bit better with using wheels that would allows digging in or spitting in of blades into the plate. Again, 1890s England, it's a blown piece, brown. The chemists are not sure of the colors here, what the intended colors were. We'll say that the bottom is brown with perhaps a bit of red in it. Then the cut glass punch bowl ever made in America. And it's a recent addition. As the story goes, the curator knew it would become available, and she literally flew out of a meeting, and I'm sure they paid plenty for it. But this one is not directly connected with foreseeable future, but it's all about Gorilla Glass. And I don't know how much you know about Gorilla Glass, but it's a very thin glass, and I'll give you an example of it when we go into the next gallery here. But Gorilla Glass now it is most likely the glass you can find on your handheld devices. And it is extremely strong and very lightweight. And much of this car is made with Gorilla Glass.
Why does it cost so little? And that's a really interesting question that the more time you spend with it, the more you don't have the answer to it, because there are actually a lot of different answers to it. So because it takes longer to make a flame-worked glass dog.
Now the first one's going to be right down here with our tank of water and our green laser. Right now that green laser is pointing from one side of the tank to the other, just like we'd expect. However, watch what happens when I try and point the laser up out of the water. As you can see, it's reflected right back down to the water. It ends up looking very similar to our graphic up here. So we have those two transparent materials. We have water and we have air, and where they're meeting, they're forming that reflective barrier and forcing the light back into the water. That's effectively what will happen inside an optical fiber, except with glass. However, when we're communicating this whiteboard that I have in order to show you, that light will actually follow the curved path of the water. That's that internal reflection of
Anyway, I'm not going to spend any time here, but this we have from I guess you might guess, from Thanksgiving forward. Everything there is glass. And Corning, New York, and why Corning Incorporated is here, and why this beautiful museum is here, but I won't. We're going to pick out about 3 things. This gallery was refreshed this past spring, and this is a new piece. see butterflies. And if you look carefully, you see 4 different species of butterflies. I know that because I read the weight, I would know the difference in the species. But what is happening here? The first word is evening. It's hard to read, but the first word is evening. And Morse code ceased to exist as a transmission language in the mid-90s. Same idea that these things are, that life is changing. These things are losing their popularity. Lastly, the black dress. Whoops, move. Now, I'm not going to talk much about this, but if you recall,